we will be diving deep into this particular Google slide right now, actually. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about shared drive, and we have a lot of information about shared drive. And you'll see these are all the things that we're going to discuss today. What is a shared drive, all the way down to best practices, and at the end we'll do a demonstration. But it's very important to understand the basics of how things work within a shared drive. Shared drive is much different than a My Drive environment, so we want to make sure you understand that. In the last year or two, since 2020, we have incorporated shared drive a lot more in the state of Iowa. Probably the biggest reasons is because now we can actually share a folder inside a shared drive. Once that was enabled and allowed inside shared drive, that has increased the want of a shared drive for the team environment purpose. So we want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information, and we're going to go ahead and dive into all these topics as we navigate through the slide deck. Also, just for your knowledge, we will post this video posted on our Google Help YouTube channel. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, it has a plethora of resources, up-to-date materials, tips and tricks, anything more, but this video will be also posted there as a place to refer back to. And we'll break it down into YouTube chapters. Cannot talk today. YouTube chapters, which if you're just asking a particular question within the slide deck, it will be linked to that YouTube chapter later as well. I better get my words figured out. Let's find out what is a shared drive. A shared drive is the following. It is a share your files with a team. Shared drives is a shared space where teams can easily store, search, and access their files anywhere. Unlike files in My Drive, files in a shared drive belong to the domain. That's a big difference as well. So it does not belong to the individual. So in My Drive, which we also consider that as your personal drive, that is when you create a document in your My Drive, you are the owner of the document. When you create a document in a shared drive, you are the creator. You have a new vocab. You are the creator, but the ownership belongs to the domain, in this case, the state of Iowa. Also on this, what is shared drive, you have a cheat sheet, a Google Help, Get Started, and a one-pager, which you can find these resources on the Google Help shared drive page as well. What are common uses for a shared drive? The following. Projects, maybe you have a project, and then this is where many people are involved in the same project. This would be a good case scenario to use a shared drive. Another one is events. So maybe you have a conference and you just want to make sure those people that are collaborating on the conference, you could have everything in that particular shared drive. It's accessed through the shared drive, obviously, but it's where you could distribute memberships that way. And then you can make a copy and call it 2022 to 2023 event, and just have a folder infrastructure inside there as well. So that's another great case scenario. Just to give you ideas, templates is another one. You could give you access to your staff and they could make their own copy, right? And you would have the small amount of people that might need to have edit rights to those, and then they would just go make a copy of the template. So like letterheads, slide decks, etc. The other thing is company-wide files. For everyone needs access, such as training files, policies and procedures, things like that. I'd like to piggyback off this one. This is another great example. Many agencies that I can think of on top of my head have portals or intranets, right? OCIO Connect is an example. You might want to consider a Google site as a common place to display the information, but all the information is inside a shared drive. So many of us know that New Sites is an app that you can use inside Google Workspace, but you also know that the drive content is usually docs, slides, and etc. You can have that stuff all stored inside that shared drive and have the permissions propagate correctly because you would share it as via Google Group. So that's another great concept. The other one is sensitive files. This is where you do have some ability to restrict some capabilities of sensitive files. Sensitive files, for highly sensitive files where you can add extra security to limit access. So you might want to, you can restrict even further in a shared drive as well. So be aware of that, that you can actually do that as well. As we navigate through this slide deck, I do want to let you know that if you see the blue icon at the bottom, very much like this one. It says learn more. You can go ahead and click learn more, and then we'll talk more about the particular slide that we're on. So if you want to know what some more common uses for a shared drive, you could go ahead and click learn more, and it will take you directly to that particular topic that's on that slide. So please know there's additional resources on the slide deck. I don't want to give you all the information because that would be robust and too much, but please know that there is an option to click learn more as well in here. The next topic is how to create a shared drive. We do kind of restrict the creation of a shared drive. To create a shared drive, please complete a ServiceNow ticket. You can probably find that in your Okta dashboard. Just complete a ServiceNow ticket. Go ahead and log in and then complete an incident. In the incident, please provide your agency name, the purpose of the shared drive. We do strongly encourage to have at least 2 managers. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but if managers is important inside a shared drive. The proposed name of a shared drive, again, this is just to help us on the back end. We encourage, or actually we mandate the agency acronym. So for example, you can see OCIO Google Team. OCIO is the agency acronym above before Google Team. So with that, be aware of that particular thing. Membership roles, manager can manage members, upload, edit, move, share folders, or delete all files. So the manager is like the president of the shared drive. The manager is a president of the shared drive. They have ultimate rights to manage, take care of the shared drive. So they can manage the members, which is adding members or editing the members of the shared drive, and then do all the following as well. The next level of membership roles in this hierarchy is content manager. Think of it as the vice president. They can view, upload, edit, move files and folders, and delete all files. The biggest difference between a manager and a content manager that you maybe cannot determine in this demonstration is that a content manager cannot add members, a content manager cannot add members, and also a content manager cannot share a folder. So those are the 2 biggest differences between a manager and a content manager. So be aware of those 2 different roles. The next one is the contributor. I would consider this like a administrative assistant, a content manager, in a sense, not content, but a website contributor, right? They're adding content into there. They can edit and view all files, upload new files, but they cannot move or delete files. So that's really important. So their responsibility is to add new content in the sense of files or folders or files and add them in there. A lot of files, they're editing the documents. Maybe it's the communication person where they're constantly viewing and editing the last communication would be another way to look at it. So I think of the manager as the president, the content manager is the VP, and the contributor is the administrative assistant. And kind of think of it in that way. Maybe that'll make more sense for you. The next 2 are pretty self-explanatory. A commenter can only comment on a file. Woo, right? So really limited access to do that. So they can comment on all files. And viewer, the one thing I want to point out, the reason why I did that is that it's all, right? All files. So when you have it, think of it as an umbrella. You have this shared drive, right? You have this shared drive, and now you have the members. That's your umbrella, right? They're going to have access to the entire shared drive. They're going to have access to the entire shared drive. That's why I'm saying all. So be aware of that. They can see all. So with that, keep that in mind. So think of the umbrella, and they can have access to all. Here's another matrix that you can help determine what a membership role can have access to. This is an access level matrix. You can see that they can do all the following. So in this case, we're focusing on the manager. So think of the manager role, the manager hat. They can have access to all the check marks that are available. They can delete a shared drive. They can move files and folders within a shared drive. They can restore. Really, what can the manager not do? Besides, the only thing the manager can't do is create the shared drive. That's it. They can do everything else. Think of it as the admin of the shared drive. So when you are thinking of creation of a shared drive, it's very important to determine what role they're going to have in a shared drive. The next role or member is the content manager. Be aware of that. They can view and view files and folders. So look at the matrix now. You can see at the bottom they have red, and go from there. So then they have the next level is the contributor. They have the next level again is that administrative assistant. They can view files and folders, can comment files, can edit files, and etc. But you can notice where the red is at, they cannot do that, those items. The next level is obviously pretty self-explanatory, commenter and viewer. And again, Google has a really good matrix as well. We just condensed the matrix for you just to give it a little more appealing eye. But if you want to see even a more detailed one, definitely check out the Learn More to determine more of the options you have in this matrix to determine what a manager, content manager, contributor, and etc. can and cannot do. It really helps you understand how you're going to build this shared drive for your business needs. Again, we're still focusing on members because that's really important. You may want to be sharing this shared drive outside the state of Iowa. And one of the requirements is that they have to have a Google account. They have to have a true Google account to access the shared drive. Now think about the environment of the shared drive. Again, the shared drive is this little icon, right? And the umbrella. They have to have a Google account to be a member of the shared drive. Adding members. Members can be Google groups or individuals. Now, this is a really good best practice to do a members of Google group. A Google group many of us have. For example, OCIO Google Team is an example of a Google group. OCIO Google Team at iowa.gov. It would be the list of the Google Team members there for you, right? To be John, Chad, myself, Jolene, we're all members of the Google Team. So you have a Google group and the members in that Google group. So that's really a nice way to distribute out shared drives. It's actually one of the best practices because if you add or remove someone from that Google group, that automatically adds or removes them from the shared drive environment. So that's one option to add members via Google group. The other way is just individuals. We kind of say if you have 5 or more individuals that you're adding, you might want to consider creating a Google group if you do not have one for your particular need. Many of us in the state of Iowa have a strong Google group infrastructure. So that might be something just to think about in the team concept. As I mentioned, members can be outside the state of Iowa. What's the caveat? They have to have a Google account to do so. So it could be my personal Gmail account if they wanted to share it to my personal Gmail or other Google domains, such as like the state of the education department works with a lot of schools. A lot of schools are Google workspace environments, such as like Atlantic Community School Districts. You could share a shared drive to someone that has a Google workspace account like Atlantic, an example. Adding members. So let's talk about this diagram that I have posted here. We're going to see this diagram throughout the slide deck quite often. Let's just look at this just for a minute. We have the shared drive is one level, right? The actual shared drive is one level. Then we have a folder level. And then we have the file level, right? Shared drive, folder, file. Okay, those are the 3 different levels. Now, as I mentioned, the manager is the only one that can add members. So let's look at this. So if the manager is the only one that can add members, they can add the following manager or members if they want. They can add a content manager, contributor, commenter, or viewer. They can actually add a manager as well. But in this demonstration, more than likely, if they're already a manager, they would just need to determine what membership role each one of those can be. So that's at the umbrella level. So think about it like they can see all files. So think about it, the shared drive is the first level and everything in there they have access to. Remember, the key word is all. So every single one of these members have access to the entire shared drive environment, okay? And again, the key thing on this particular slide is who can add the members? Only the manager. The only thing the manager can do as well is, not the only thing, one of the things the manager can do that no one else can do is settings. Also, the Google admins can help as well in both of those cases, but most of the time we give it to you to manage the rest of the shared drive. And one of those things is settings. Okay. What are the setting options you have in a shared drive? You have only 3, but this goes back to that sensitive files concept. Maybe you do want to restrict that. Okay. You can. Now, I can tell you from all the shared drives that I have worked with, most people leave it the default. The default is all checked marked as shown here. People outside the state of Iowa can add files. Most people that use shared drives leave it checked. We want to collaborate outside the state of Iowa, like the Atlantic Community School District's example, or whatever the case may be. But if you want to, as a manager role, you can restrict even that happening, right? So you can restrict it, okay? So you have that shared drive setting. You also have people who aren't shared drive members can add files. So we'll learn the keyword guest here in a minute. So guest, maybe we don't allow them to share files, okay? So you're making it more restrictive, okay? And again, the last one is, again, very restrictive. Viewers and commenters can download, print, and copy files. That is another option you can do as well. So again, as I mentioned, this is usually not something many people mess with, but it is important to know maybe why you can't share a file, or why can't I share it to Atlantic Community School District, or whatever the case may be. This is one of those reasons that maybe the manager restricted that capability of doing so, okay? So be aware of that. Ownership of the files and folders, we've kind of already talked about it, but it's very important to be aware of. Ownership of the files and folders belong to the domain. Again, does not belong to the individual like it is in my drive. The other option does not belong to the original creator of the document. So again, I mentioned earlier, if I create a document in a shared drive, I do become the creator, but I do not become the owner, right? A different vocab, different meaning. So just be aware of that. The other thing is, if you move a file from my drive, which is known as our personal drive, right, to a shared drive, the ownership is transferred now. If it was your document and you were the owner in my drive and you decide to move that file into a shared drive, you are now transferring ownership to the domain. You actually get a pop-up when you do that. So don't think, oh, they're not going to tell me that. No, they tell you you're transferring ownership. You have one more click. Do you want to transfer? And you make that conscious decision to do so. Searching in Google Drive. This is a video that has no audio. So do not expect audio to come through. It's kind of like a long GIF. How about that? So just consider, I'm going to talk through it, but you can search in a shared drive. What we find in a shared drive, or even in Google Drive, we kind of find it kind of cumbersome at times. Well, there's some shortcuts within searching. And one of the benefits of searching in a shared drive is that you can actually just limit your search in a shared drive location. And so we're going to play this video, and hopefully it works, because I'm having issues today, obviously. Let's see how things go here. And again, you'll notice, again, no audio, do not expect audio, but it's common searching. But notice the location there is actually searching inside the shared drive. There's many ways to do it. This is the purpose of the video. You can actually click the drop down as it's showing, and you can search within that shared drive. You can actually do the same thing on any folder infrastructure, but that's just a really nice key way to narrow your search, because now you're not searching your entire Google Drive app. So again, the other option is to right click on the folder from using the left-hand side and hitting search, and then type in the keyword up there as well. Now, Google has recently launched search tips, as you can see here in this video. Search tips can really also help your way to refine your search as well. Those search tips appear anytime you do a search. These tips and tricks do not just apply inside a shared drive. A lot of this will work for you when you're just searching in the Google Drive environment, period. This one is the advanced search option, where you can search for location. Again, I'm just using the shared drive environment as an example, but again, these are great ways to narrow your search down, especially now you're not searching your entire Google Drive infrastructure. So again, we'll definitely demonstrate this, but again, it's just a good reminder of how fast you can narrow your search down by just using the famous right click and looking for search within that location. Deleting works slightly different in a shared drive environment as well. It requires at least a content manager, think of the vice president, to access to delete a file. Requires at least a content manager to access or delete a file. Requires at least a contributor access to view and restore a file from shared drive trash bin. Now, a shared drive has its own individual trash bin. Unlike My Drive, you have your My Drive trash bin, right? That's your trash bin for My Drive. Each shared drive that you might have 3 shared drives. Let's say you will have a shared drive trash bin for each one of them. Depending on your level, or depending on your membership role, you may or may not be able to see it. If you have view access, you're not going to be able to see it, right? So you can see that a contributor or above can at least see the shared drive trash bin. And depending on your level, in this case, contributor can restore on up, will be able to restore any file that's in the trash bin, okay? Again, you can see why it's giving you more security of what's going on in that shared drive environment. The other thing, it requires at least a content manager access to delete a folder. So a contributor cannot delete a folder, but a content manager can. And some of these things are like, well, I can't remember all this. This is just really important information to be aware of as you build your shared drive. Same concept as you're used to inside Gmail and in My Drive, you have up to 30 days. So if you do delete a file, file A, into your trash bin and you kind of didn't realize someone did that, you have up to 30 days to restore it in your individual trash bin that's under that shared drive. We're used to the 30-day time limit within shared drive. We're used to that in Gmail as well. There is some limitations, and yes, the state of Iowa has hit these limitations, no doubt about it. Maximum amount of files and folders. So there is we are Google for Enterprise Queue, which does mean that we have unlimited storage. So don't worry about the storage. Storage doesn't matter. But however, in a shared drive, one particular shared drive, there is a file and folder limit of 400,000. And yes, we have hit this. So this is very important. If you are uploading a whole bunch of files or folders from a network drive to a shared drive, you need to be conscious of how many files or folders you are uploading into one location. The workaround for this particular issue is one, is it a best case scenario to put it in a shared drive? Maybe, maybe not, or keep it in a My Drive shared folder, right? Might be a better option depending on your business needs. But if you do think a shared drive is the best option for you and you're going to hit or be close to hitting that 400,000 file and folder limit, the workaround that we have done is created shared drive 1, shared drive 2, shared drive 3. You tell us or how you want to adjust that shared drive and break it into different sections. We've done it multiple ways, but be aware of that limit. The other limit that some users have run into, especially one particular agency, is a maximum upload per day. There is a maximum upload of data that can be uploaded per day, and that's 750 gigabyte. So maximum uploads per day is 750 gigabyte. This folder hierarchy, I do not want you to get confused on this. It does not mean you can only have 20 folders in your shared drive. That's not what it's saying. What it's actually saying is nested up to 20 subfolders. So let's just look at my hands, if you would, for a minute. This is folder A, right? Fold 1 is a subfolder. 2 is a subfolder inside 1. 3 is a subfolder inside 2. That is what I mean. It's in, so you have like a diagonal of 20 in one folder. Does that make sense? That's not good practice anyway. We don't want you to have that long of folder infrastructures because that's like a lot of clicking, right? Click, 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 and click, 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 like not a good plan, right? So Google does have a limitation on that. Obviously, the workaround is to structure your Google Drive folder infrastructure, but be aware of that anyway. And that could be very clunky anyway. You wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to go into 20 different subfolders to find the file I'm looking for, okay? So don't think of your limit to 20 folders. That's not what I'm saying. 20 nested folders, okay, in the diagonal, okay? The other thing is directly added members. This is, I don't know anybody that's hit this one, but it's important to let you know, the 600 individual members or Google groups. Now, again, we mentioned earlier, best practice to share a Google Drive is to actually share it in a Google group email address, right? OCIO Google Team at iowa.gov, right? The members are part of that, right? That's good practice. So a Google group is considered an instance, right? So even though it has 6 members, right, it's still considered an instance, okay? Then maybe I want to add Darwin. Maybe I want to add Trainer 13. Those are now, I'm up to 3 instances, okay? Even though my membership count is now 9, right? 6 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is now 9. So just be aware that it is now only 3 instances, as you are only limited to 600 instances, individual emails. Again, I don't foresee this one being an issue by any means, but be aware of that particular one as well. I'm going to go back to this one. There is a few more limitations. So if you are thinking, I'm not sure, please check out, but these are the most common ones that we want to make sure that you're aware of as well. So definitely check out the Learn More. It'll take you to the limit page on Google Help. There are a few known issues. Again, not very many, but ones that you, again, should be aware of before thinking about using a shared drive. Google Maps cannot be stored in Google Drive. That is one that we're aware of, and Google has reported this as well. The other one that Google has reported, and could actually, this one has been an issue for a few people, including myself, Google Forms that accept upload documents. Now, please do not hear me. I did not say Google Forms cannot be stored in a shared drive. Google Forms can be stored in a shared drive. The only forms that cannot be stored in a shared drive is when you create a Google form and it allows an upload of a document. Not very many people use that, but that is important to be aware of. So if you're like, why isn't this form not working? Or why is Google telling me I can't store this form? It's not all forms. It's just forms that have upload documents in the question in the Google form. This is more of a state of Iowa recommendation, not really Google saying, but we are concerned about it, and we always discourage any access databases in a shared drive environment. The reason is because access databases can be a collaborative environment, period. Microsoft has its own collaborative portion of access. Let's say it that way. I'm not sure that's accurate, but that's what it's supposed to be doing, right? Well, now you're adding Google Drive's collaborative environment. We just don't want your file to be corrupt, and we're not sure if we can fix it for you. So we always recommend access databases be more stored on a Windows environment in a sense of a shared network drive, not in a Google Drive. So if you're thinking, oh, we would love shared drive, one of the questions that John and I will always ask is, how many access databases are you using? If there's, we don't recommend moving access databases over. Many people that have been using access databases have not been used for a long time, and it's just more of a purge concept. But if it is an active access database, we will have to come up with a workaround because we want to keep that file integrity good to go. Some other things is you cannot, any user, as an end user, let me speak that clearly, as an end user cannot move folders from my drive to a shared drive. Cannot move folders from my drive to a shared drive. You will get a message saying, cannot move folders to my drive to shared drive, keyword yet, okay? Keyword yet, okay? That's probably giving you a keyword saying maybe soon, okay? And I've been saying that for a year, but we'll see what happens. This one is a very rare one. Most of our shared drives do not use the contributor access point, okay? So we have not received a ticket on this at all that I am aware of, but we do want to inform you on this one. Many of our users in the state of Iowa are fond of the app Google Drive for Desktop. It's a tool where you can actually access your Google Drive environment, both My Drive and Shared Drive, from File Explorer. If you missed that training, we had a really good training a couple of weeks ago. You check it on the YouTube. If you're kind of like, what is she talking about? Or, hey, I really need to understand it better, definitely check out that training. But if you are a Google Drive for Desktop user, you will notice if you have a contributor access, so the third line, right, the third hierarchy, you will have some issues with Microsoft Office files. If you open an Excel file in this example and you are a contributor from File Explorer, which is Google Drive or desktop, you will have some issues with saving your edits. It won't let you, okay? It won't let you. So you will then have to either make a new copy of one, or you will then either have to increase or expand your accessibility to a content manager at least. Again, if that's just something to be aware of, again, we have not received a ticket, but we have so many users using Google Drive for desktop. Members versus guests. So I have, if you've been to in the previous shared drive training, you'll notice this is a whole different slide deck. I tried to make it a little more easier to understand, less screenshots, and just give you the basic understanding of this, and then dive into a demo. One of the key words that you have noticed that we've been talking about for the previous training, or throughout this whole entire training for the last 30 minutes, is we've been talking about members. And we've talked about members have all access. This is important. I'm only emphasizing because it's really important. Members are the umbrella. They have access to the entire shared drive depending on their level. Some could have viewer, some could be managers, different levels, but they have access to all files. Okay, so we got that understanding, right? That's important. So the other terminology that you need to be aware of is you might have a guest, right? Like inviting a guest to your house, right? They might have access to one particular area in your house, right? It's a guest, okay? They can have access to an individual file or folder in that shared drive, okay? So now you have the vocab members, which has access no matter what to all files, and a guest could just have access into that one particular area of the house, or in this case, a file or folder, okay? So that's important as we talk about sharing, right? We're talking about sharing now. And we're going to focus on sharing folders right now. Sharing folders, okay? Managers can only share folders to guests and expand rights to members, okay? This is a very important slide. So if I was in a classroom right now, I would ask you, who can share folders? And you all would say managers, okay? And they can share to who? Guests. And they can expand the rights to the members. Expand means increase, right? You'll notice there is a thing here that says not reduce. We cannot be more restrictive in the folder level or the file level, okay? So in this case, in the little demonstration here, you can increase from a viewer to an editor, right? But you cannot make an editor to a viewer, okay? The permissions don't work the way that you think it would normally, right? We don't have as much granular sharing as we do in a shared drive environment as we do in a My Drive environment, okay? It's not quite the same, okay? So let's actually break it down in a diagram form here. Okay, there's our umbrella, okay? What are we doing now? We're going to expand the access level for our members. Members can see all files, remember? But we can expand it. Now, who can actually do that? The only person that can actually expand at the folder level is the manager. The manager is the only one that can do that, right? So the manager can then expand the folder from contributor can now be a content manager. She got a pay raise, she's going up, or he, commenter, can either be a contributor, content manager of that folder inside that shared drive. And a viewer can get all the way up to a content manager if the manager thinks that that person should. Okay, does that make sense? So we're not talking about the shared drive limit. They can do that as well, but we're only talking about maybe this folder A, and I really think this person needs to have more access to this particular folder. Okay, so she will become a content manager throughout the entire folder infrastructure, not the entire shared drive. Okay, notice I never went down on their levels. I could not go down. I cannot go to a content manager to a viewer. Okay, I could not do that. It's not possible. Only expand and increase. Let's talk about files though. Files are different than folders, right? So we've got our umbrellas. We got our umbrella, manager all the way to viewer. These are our members. These are not guests. These are members of the household, the members of the shared drive. Now, who can expand the file access of a file? A manager can expand access, a content manager can expand access, and a contributor can expand access. So a commenter can now be an editor. A viewer can be a commenter or editor of that file. Okay, and these are just examples to get a better understanding of the expansion of the members, right? And this was at the what level? That's right, the file level. Now let's talk about our guests, these guests that we're inviting to our house. We're inviting them to the shared drive. Now, they're guests, so they could only, guest is only going to get a portion of our house, right? Just a portion of our house. They're not going to have the entire house. In this case, we're deciding the portion that this guest should have is the folder portion, okay? So the manager is the only one that can do the folders. We know that by now, right? Manager is the only one that could do anything with the folders in the sense of that. So they're going to share the folder. And now, oops, went back. They added a guest. This guest could be someone that's not a member. So in this case, it could be like I'm inviting trainer one. Trainer one is not really part of this team, but I really want her to work on this folder in this project, okay? Or maybe this is a portal web shared drive, right? And I've got all my private documents in my shared drive, but this one folder, I need to change the permissions to anyone with the link access because that's the public information, right? Okay. So the manager gets to make that decision. So it can either do a guest to invite an individual or group that's outside the shared drive membership, right? This country club, they're members, but this is a guest that I'm inviting to the pool. And now I can either share it via link, okay, at the folder level. So let's watch this tutorial. Again, there's no audio, so don't expect audio. But this tutorial is showing you how a manager can add a guest via link at the folder level. So the right click is the way I share. They're going to add a guest. In this case, trainer 7 is a guest. And the manager is making a decision of what level this guest should be on this folder. She's going to hit save and share. So now we're going to then show you how we can be changing the link. You can change it to state of Iowa. And who is doing this? The manager is doing this. Then I just want to show you here, when you show the propagated permissions, you will see now 7 and the link has access to the files inside that shared drive. Okay. So we all know how to share, but it's the same concept that we're used to sharing folders, but this is different in the sense that the manager is the only one that can share at the folder level. Let's just talk about links of file level. So now we're going to the file level. The manager can share the file level, like we said, and can invite a guest via link. Okay, this is going to seem kind of repetitive, but we're just making sure you understand there's like 3 different levels here. There's the shared drive level, there's the folder level, and then there's the file level. Same thing, we know the content manager can also share files, right? They can also share the files to guests. So we're inviting guests to our country club, and they can do that either via link or an individual email address or Google group. Continuing on, the contributor can also do the same thing if the settings are allowing. Now, keep in mind, I'm going with the 80-20 rule. 80% of you do not mess with the settings to not allow this to happen. So I'm assuming that's what I'm going to focus on. But if for some reason the manager restricts any of these capabilities, you're not going to be able to do this, okay? All depends on the settings, but again, not usually turned off. And now, since the settings are not turned off, a guest, in this case scenario, a guest can also add people if they're an editor to the file, as long as the settings are allowed, okay? So now you know who can share files. This also is very important. You might not want a guest to it, so you might want to turn that setting off, okay? I'm recapping Again, because this is an important slide, because we're going to show you one more tutorial. Sharing folders, it cannot be more restrictive. It seems backwards. It's hard to train this. It cannot be more restrictive, okay? It only can expand, okay? So watch this video and you will get a better understanding. And I might pause it here. So the manager is deciding here to actually share, is inside this folder called Sprint 1. Okay, this manager is inside this Sprint 1 agenda, and she's thinking, I want to actually restrict access to this document. Okay, trying to restrict access to this particular document. Now, notice before we go, who already has access here? 7 is a guest and a link is there. Okay, 7 is a guest and a link is there. Okay, I'm gonna push play. So manager's trying to restrict access. Notice then she's trying to remove trainer 7. Trainer 7 is a guest, not a member, a guest. Notice trying to remove the guest, this pop-up appears. Remove a person from the parent folder. Now, trainer 7 was the one that we shared earlier to that particular folder level as a guest, right? Trainer 7 was the guest. Well, since it was shared at the folder level, it cannot be restrictive. It cannot be granular that far down, okay? So you get this pop-up. So what's going to happen is trainer 7 is going to no longer have access to the parent folder either, because they're going to remove that person. And the same thing applies. Restricted. Oh, well, now you're going to change your parent folder to be restricted. Now, and it's going to go back to show you here that all those permissions changed at the folder level. So I'm going to pause here. You can see now back to the folder level, since we chose to remove trainer 7 and remove the link, trainer 7 is now removed at the parent level. That's what I mean. It cannot be restrictive in that level of the file if the parent folder has been shared. Okay. All right. So confusing. I know you're not the only one, but this video will kind of help you. So again, only the manager and the content manager are probably going to see this, right? So just be aware of that. Okay, so that tutorial should help you to some degree, and we'll definitely demonstrate that in a minute as well. But it's a good resource for you as we go through. Moving items from My Drive to Shared Drive. So we're no longer talking about sharing. So we're moving to a whole new gamut here. Moving items from My Drive to a shared drive. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot move folders from My Drive to shared drive. Keyword what? Yet, right? Yet. Files can be moved by the owner. So if I'm trying to move trainer 1's document into this shared drive, I will not be able to do so, because why? Trainer 1 is the owner, not myself. Okay. So files can be moved by the owner. I can move my own files if I have access to that shared drive as a contributor or above, and I'll be able to move those files in there. Okay. But I have to be the owner. So let's say folder permissions do not follow when moved to a shared drive. What does this mean? So let's think of folder A, and I have shared it to John and Jill in my drive. John and Jill in my drive, okay? I then have taken this document that I have owned inside that shared drive, document A, and I own it because I have to own it. And now I want to take that document into a shared drive. John and Jill won't have access to that anymore, because more than likely in that shared drive, they don't have access to it. The folder permissions that were shared at the folder permissions do not come over, okay? So if John and Jill still need access to that, you need to go back to the shared drive and then share it to them again, okay? Parent level, okay? Again, this doesn't hit that many people, but it's important to be aware of, okay? However, if John and Jill, I have a document that's just random and not been shared by a folder, okay, and I have shared individually this one document to John and Jill, and I am the owner, shared to John and Jill. Now, at the file level, I take this folder, this document over to the shared drive. John and Jill will still have access if the settings allow guests to have access to that shared drive. Okay. So again, it's important what you're taking from to the new shared drive and who has access to, because you might be removing access that you shouldn't either. But if you're the owner of that document, that's why the ownership is important. You have ultimate rights to do whatever you want with that document. Okay. This is just a quick little video. You can watch at your own time. It just talks about my drive versus shared drive. So definitely if you want to just talk, it's only like a minute long. I won't play this, but it's a cute little video. It talks about everything we've been talking about, how shared drive is a team environment, my drive is kind of your personal drive, and understanding how you can use it. And it's just a little more marketing material for you. So one of the things that we want to compare to, though, because you need to make a business need. You have a business need, you need to make the best decision regarding that need, right? I don't know what your need is, and we'll be more than happy to discuss what your purpose is, and then saying, well, this might be your best case scenario, and this might be your best case scenario for whatever it is that you need. But one of the things is we do actually have to think about my drive versus shared drive, right? And so we did create this little matrix for you just to know some quick comparisons of my drive and shared drive. So you're like, okay, I want it to be owned by the domain. If that's one of your dire needs that you need, then you know a shared drive is owned by the domain, right? I want it to be more restrictive that only managers have rights. Well, that's another solution would be shared drive. But maybe you need true granular, like all the way down to the file level, and you want to be able to keep that infrastructure exactly that way. Maybe my drive might be an option for you, right? Maybe it's an onboarding thing. This is a great example. So let's say it's your OCIO Connect portal, right? And every time you add a new employee to OCIO All Staff, and they get added to that Google group, awesome. Shared drives work great for that, because when you add a member or remove a member from a Google group, shared drives will automatically remove that access for them or add them access. Now, some of us have been using my drive for so long. You'll notice on this one, if you actually add a person to a Google group, add, not remove, add a person to the Google group, and they can't find that folder in there shared with me, because it has to be shared with them again, or not again, but the first time to even have access in there shared with me. So those are things to think about. That's where shared with drive comes back to the whole team concept, good company-wide, something that onboarding, offboarding works really good for. Again, just something to be aware of. The other good news, both Google Drive for desktop works for my drive and shared drive. Trash works similar, more restrictive on a shared drive environment, but really your my drive, you're just taking care of your own documents. So just be aware of that. So just a quick little matrix if you need to do a comparison. It's not that in depth, but just be something to do a quick look before you decide on what route you should take. The other thing is sometimes maybe you want to move files out of a shared drive. Could be something down the road more so, or to another shared drive. Again, maybe your shared drive's hitting capacity and you need to move from one shared drive to another. This does actually happen quite a bit for one particular agency. They kind of max out in their shared drive, and now they have to reorganize and move some folders to another shared drive. But who can do that? Who is the only person that can actually move files out of the shared drive, or to my drive, or to a shared drive? You got it. That manager is a very important manager, and this is why we recommend at least 2 managers, because it can be a lot of work for one manager, or if that manager is gone. So best practice, at least 2. At least requires manager access to a shared drive to move files and folders out of a shared drive to a my drive environment or to another shared drive environment. So let's look at this diagram. We're so familiar with this diagram by the end of the slide deck, is that we want to move folders or files out of the shared drive into another environment. Now you'll get a moving truck literally sometimes it feels like it, they can move both the files and folders, a manager, out of the shared drive into another shared drive as long as they have a contributor access or above, or into their My Drive. Okay, no one else can actually move the files out into the My Drive environment for sure, and go from there. Okay. There's other case scenarios where you might move to another shared drive. Okay, so to move files, keyword, files. Okay, notice if you are wanting to move a file from a shared drive to another shared drive. So file A, I want to move to another shared drive. I have to at least be a manager, content manager, or contributor, and I either have to be a manager, content contributor to the destination shared drive. So if I'm taking out a shared drive A and my destination is shared drive B, I have to be at least a contributor on both ends, and it has to be a file. Okay. All right. And so then they can move that file or files to another shared drive if they are a manager, content manager in destination shared drive. Okay. This is a fun one because I believe in fun after all this. What is she talking about? You can customize your shared drive theme. For example, you'll notice in this screenshot, you can add a little flare. You can customize it, maybe put your agency acronym or agency logo there if you want, or whatever the case may be, because maybe you have a whole bunch of shared drives and you just need that visual indicator in your Google Drive app in the Chrome. You can provide that. I'm going to be honest, I just stole these instructions. I've used them. They work great, found them on the web. So if you want to customize your shared drives, follow those instructions to do so. And if time allows, I will walk through that as well. Last thing, we're almost done to the demonstration portion. Best practices, there's 6 of them. First one is put a collaborative or reference file in a shared drive to avoid data loss. I don't want you to be worried about data loss in the sense. It's just that more of offboarding, right? How is your offboarding for your agency? Maybe you don't have a great practice. If it's in the domain, it's in the shared drive. We know it's always going to be owned by the state of Iowa and not a particular end user, right? That's what I mean by data loss. Not like it's gone, just like that person, we didn't transfer ownership of that file and folder for that particular person. So if it's in a shared drive environment, we know it's owned by the domain, okay? Not in the security concept. Please may understand that. The other one is give each shared drive a clear focus or purpose. This is probably the most important one, I think, one of the most important ones. What is your purpose of the shared drive? You really have to think about that, okay? Before you even start down this road, you need to know what's your purpose, who am I sharing with, who's going to have access, what membership roles are we going to do, how many times are we going to be sharing a folder, who's going to do all that? You have to really think about the purpose and have an understanding of that shared drive. Google Groups, again, 5 or more. If you're adding individuals, that's cumbersome. Again, we don't have time to manage these for you, or you don't have time to manage these for you, right? You don't want to be ongoing, who doesn't have access and they're requesting access. You want to use a Google Group infrastructure if you're sharing more than 5 people or more. That's just a number that we pick up, but it's pretty accurate. Share content responsibly. That's just common sense. Make sure, and that's why you have some more different roles in a shared drive. Organize folders, shared drives with access in mind. We ran into this one time for one particular agency. We didn't test it out completely the way we should have, but there was one particular folder that needed to be anyone with link access. Well, then we had to do a workaround and we got to get those files in there. Those files have to be in there, right? We can't do another subfolder inside there because of the restrictive part of it, right? So really think about your infrastructure and who is going to have access to what. And also a good naming scheme as well, which I think is number 6. Naming conventions is important too, right? So think of that as well. Maybe by year, do 01, 02. Just have good naming conventions and have a strong folder infrastructure, especially in a shared drive environment, because it's a collaborative environment. Your naming scheme might not make sense to someone else. then come up with a team collaborative naming scheme as you create your shared drive. So I want to apologize for my little fiasco there earlier, but we're ready to dive into the demo portion. Before we dive into the demo portion, we're going to be working on an OCIO training shared drive. And we need to talk about our umbrella, our members, who is what. And it's kind of hard when you have only trainer accounts, but it will make do, right? So today I'm going to be trainer 13 as I demonstrate today. Notice that trainer 13 is the manager, the president. Who else is the president? It's my own account, Jessica. Practicing two best practices, or practicing the best practice of having two managers. So trainer 13 is a manager and Jessica is the manager. Jessica and trainer 13 can update the drive settings, which we've talked about, which I'm going to stick with the 80-20 rule. 80% of you do not adjust these settings. We're going to show you what the 80% use, which means we love to talk to people outside the state of Iowa. We also, people who aren't shared drive members can add files. So those guests that are invited to the country club can also invite guests to the country club, okay? And we are going to allow them to make copies of anything in there, and they're going to allow to print if they want to. We just have it more of an open setting, okay? All right, so managers who get to decide that, Jessica and trainer 13, okay? Who's the VP, the content manager? That's trainer 5. Trainer 5 is the content manager, okay? And trainer 4 is the contributor. And then we have 3 and 1 as a commenter and viewer. We're not going to talk about every single role there. The top 3 roles that make sense to go over is the manager, the content manager, and the contributor, okay? So just be aware of that. That is the shared drive we're going to work on today. And we're going to get out of here for a second, and we're going to go ahead and navigate to Google Drive. And again, and for today's training, I am trainer 13. I'm going to go ahead and pull up Google Drive. Now, I'm not going to show this in Google Drive for desktop, but you do have access to shared drives inside Google Drive for desktop as long as you have a shared drive access, meaning that someone has shared a Google shared drive to you. If you don't see shared drive, you're not in problems. Just means you don't have a shared drive yet, okay? If you have a shared drive or going to get one, you're going to have a new drop down on the left-hand side. You will see your personal drive, which we call our My Drive, but now you see shared drive, and you have a separate caret to go ahead and pull it down. In this particular account, there is only one, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click on OCIO training. We just talked about OCIO training and who has access. Okay, now I am a manager hat, so I am the president of this OCIO training shared drive. So let's look at the role of a manager. And again, it's important to look at the manager role because they have the most capability of adjusting the shared drive. So we really need to make sure what they can and cannot do. So the first thing we're going to look at is the drop down option in the shared drive. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to click the drop down. The manager is going to manage members. This is where the members can be added. So I could add here, just like I've done numerous times, just add an individual or Google group and determine what role they should have. Or in this particular case, maybe I think that trainer 1 is now going to get promoted and become a content manager, or demoted and remove access. Okay, this is the members. Members. What does members have access to? All files and folders inside that shared drive. Okay, if you don't believe me, let's just check. Sprint 5 folder, look who has access. Every single one of those members have access to that file, that folder, okay? All right, so think of it as the top level, the umbrella, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is just go down and let's look at the next thing is we can always email our members. I kind of like this feature because maybe you just wanna talk to the managers of this particular shared drive. You can actually determine who you want to email by their membership role. So do you want to do email just the viewers? You could do so. And also just, compose a little email and you get to pull at the access level. So that's an option for you as well. The other thing, again, remember, for those that are joining, I am in the hat of a manager, okay? Manager. So we also have, I'll do that again, do that pretty fast. Click on the drop down, you have a shared drive setting. You'll notice people, this is where I'm not going to adjust, but this is where you can do so, okay? Change theme, I will say that to the end if time allows, but this is where if you want to follow the instructions, you could go ahead and do so and adjust your theme. If you don't want to create your custom theme, you can go ahead and pick from the gallery. You can rename the shared drive. However, if you remember at the very beginning of this training, one thing that we require is to have the agency acronym. Now, we can't stop you from changing that. However, we hope that you'll listen to us for other reasons, is to just keep the agency acronym before your name, okay? So you can rename it, just keep the agency acronym. Maybe training doesn't seem to fit this particular shared drive anymore. Just remove training and adjust it, but just keep the agency acronym at the beginning. This is where we can search here as well. The other thing you can do as well is this is everybody. You can hide the shared drive. This goes back to one of the purposes of a shared drive is for events, right? Maybe this is no longer an important shared drive. You don't need to see it right now, but you don't want to obviously delete it. You just want it hidden so you can't see it. You can always hide it and then bring it back up when that event is coming up again for the next time. So you can always hide your shared drives. Or maybe this is one you get into once a month or whatever, and it's just taking up your real estate and you just need less, especially in the Google Drive environment as well as in your Google Drive environment in the Chrome app. This is where you can view trash. This is one of the ways you can view trash. Now, I wanted to point this out though. If you have a shared drive, notice this, the trash actually says trash from, that's right, the shared drive name. You also, if you are a manager or above, or manager, content manager, and contributor, can at least see it. You'll notice then you have your My Drive trash, 2 different trash bins. If you had another shared drive like OCO Training 2, that would have a separate trash bin for each shared drive, okay? Each shared drive has its own trash bin. If you don't want to go view trash like I just did, you can always, let me get out of this for a second, go back to your trash bin over here. This is your My Drive trash bin, your personal drive trash bin, and you can always click the drop down and locate your shared drive trash bin that you are working on. Which, if you make sense, each shared drive has to have its own because each shared drive has its different roles and members, right? So be aware of that as we go through that. All right, we're going to change just to a new topic within shared drives. We're going to talk about folders, right? We're going to talk about folders. And I could go back to the slide deck. We're just going to, real quick. Remember this famous slide? Well, this is important, and I'm recapping for a reason. Managers can share folders, right? Managers only. And I'm a manager right now. I'm the president of this shared drive, okay? So we can expand, we're going to expand our memberships first. Our members, people that are members of the country club are going to expand their roles, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go to Sprint 1, and I'm going to share Sprint 1. Now, as a manager, I can determine that Trainer 1 can now be a content manager. Okay, she has got a promotion and now she's the content manager of this folder shared drive, Sprint 1. Okay, so Trainer 1 adjusting to content manager. Let's go ahead and hit done. Notice now if I hover over there, let me refresh here. Now, notice that the icon has changed. It's got a little share icon, right? Sprint 1, I have the iScreen because it's a nice little cheat sheet for me. I can quickly see who has access. Trainer 1 is now a content manager. Her rights got expanded, got promoted, right? Sprint 2, notice Sprint 2, Trainer 1 is still a viewer in Sprint 2 folder. I only expanded the rights of the folder of the share Sprint 1, okay? If I go to Sprint 2, I just want to show you, I'm going to share. Notice now I cannot reduce the rights. If I think Trainer 3 has messed up commenting, I cannot change Trainer 3 to a viewer, okay? I cannot reduce it because, remember, the umbrella is whatever's set at the membership level, okay, is what they get to stay at. They can always be promoted. They can always be promoted or expanded, okay? But they cannot be reduced. No matter how much they mess up, you're going to have to go up here and change her to a different level, but it's going to change all access to all files, okay? Let's go and change hats just a little bit. We understand that we can expand the membership at the folder level. We're still sticking with the folder level right now. Remember, there's 3 different levels: the shared drive level, the folder level, and the file level. Okay, sticking with the folders because we know the manager can only change the folders. I'm going to go ahead now and share to a guest. So I'm going to go ahead and share to a guest. So I'm going to right click on Sprint 2 just to show you a different one. And now notice that John is not part of our membership. John is being invited to the country club and he's going to be my guest, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and add John. And I can decide, well, I can give contributor access, commenter, or viewer, okay? I'm going to go ahead and give him content manager, which read what content manager says, can add, edit, move, and delete files, okay? So I can go ahead and hit send. I won't notify him because he'll be annoyed. I'm going to go ahead and hit share. Okay. So now look at this folder here. I'm going to get off of it for a second. John is a content manager. Okay. John is a content manager. Now I'm going to just go into Trainer 4 for a minute. Trainer 4 is a contributor. Think of the administrative role, right? Contributor can only add content, right? So let's go to the shared drive. I'm in Trainer 4. I'm no longer manager. No longer got demoted here. Okay. I'm no longer the manager. I can still see who has access at the folder level. Awesome. Notice now I'm thinking I normally can share, right? I can share. I can still add people to this at the file level. But notice I can't adjust or remove John. Why is that? John was added at the folder level, and who's the only one can adjust the folder level? The manager, okay? Okay, but I can increase the members. And that's why in Shared Drive, you have people with access. This is why you have a breakdown. You have all. Everybody that has access to this file, you can quickly see. But who is your guest to the country club? John is our guest today, okay? And members, those are your members. So the time that I spent guest and members, it's really to understand who has access from here, okay? I could still send this to Chad, this file to Chad Hall, who is not a member, who is a guest, even at the contributor level. But now I'm just doing it at the what level? File level. At the file level. And I'm a contributor. Okay. But we can see that at the folder level, the contributor cannot add people. Okay. But at the folder level, Trainer 4, who's the, I'm repeating myself because it's kind of confusing. Trainer 4, who's the contributor, not a manager, thinks that this folder should be shared to someone outside, right? She can always ask. Notice, ask to share. Yeah, I think Chad should have access to the entire folder. Chad should have access to the entire folder. I think so. I'm the contributor. I'm asking permission to my president. Can we add Chad to this entire folder? Let's go ahead and do that. I want to ask, how does that work? Okay. I'm now going to switch roles. I am back as a manager. I am back as a manager. Got my manager hat on. Okay. Manager, member, trainer 4, the contributor, requested Chad to have access at the folder level. I, as the manager, can make that decision. Yeah, you're right. Chad needs to have access, or no, Chad does not need to have access. So regardless, I can open the sharing settings. I think Chad should have access. Totally agree. Let's go ahead and add Chad, and I can determine what access I want Chad to have, and I can go ahead and share. But who made that decision at the folder level? That's right, the manager. The manager. Staying with the folder, let's look at it a little differently. We're going to talk about files here in a minute. Let's go to removing. Remember that video we showed? So let's remind you that you cannot be restrictive. So now let's say John has really messed up this agenda. Okay. Well, I gave John access. Maybe not in this one. Sorry. I gave John access in this particular folder, right? Sprint 2. I gave John access at the folder level, and obviously the permissions propagate down. So if I click on the agenda, John has access right here as well to the Sprint agenda. Okay, John has messed up too many times. So now I'm deciding he does not need to have access to that agenda. Okay, so I want to remove access altogether. Stop. This is the message we saw earlier. This is telling you that you can't go as this far granular. Okay. All right. So then I have to, as a manager, make a decision. Well, he's only messing up the agenda. I probably just need to move agenda out of that folder infrastructure, or maybe he's been messing up quite a bit, or he shouldn't have access to this. I have to make that conscious decision. Why am I removing John? If I'm moving John just to remove one file, maybe I should just move that file out of that shared folder. Okay, I have to make a decision on that. Or is John need to be removed altogether because he's on a different team, right? You have to make those decisions. For feasibility, I'm just going to go ahead and say, John, okay, you no longer need to have access to Sprint 2. I'm going to remove access to Sprint 2, and that's going to show you now when I click on Sprint 2, John no longer has access to Sprint 2 at the folder level as well. So if he's not access to the folder level, that means he doesn't have access to the file levels in the folder Sprint 2. Okay, so you have choices. I could have just moved that agenda to a different folder. Okay. All righty. And then again, files work the same, and this not the same, but you can just share a file. Again, a contributor, content manager, and manager can share files, okay, either via Google Group or anyone with the link access. You also, as a guest, can, in this particular settings, how they're set, can also add people as a guest. So a guest can add a guest, okay? That's not how usually country clubs work, but in a shared drive, if you have the permissions allowed, a guest can add a guest, okay? Okay. All right, let's just briefly talk about, I have about 9 more minutes here. Let's briefly talk about moving files from my drive to a shared drive. If you're moving a large amount of files, I need you to stop and think, okay? I need you to maybe talk to us. We'll give you best practices, what we might suggest. There's been lessons learned even on my end. Again, if you are one, can I just stop and pause for a second? If you are one that's moving a lot of files from a network drive, and you're like, well, I'm just going to put it in my drive and put it in shared drive, stop. Don't do that, okay? If you're thinking, I want to move files from a network drive, oh, this should be a really good shared drive, then let's put that documents into the shared drive automatically. Not automatically, but you have to put them in the shared drive environment first. Don't put them in the My Drive, okay? If you're thinking it should be a shared drive or a shared folder, and this would be a great shared drive experience for us, and that's our business need, let's not put them in my drive and then think, oh, it'll be just really easy to put them back into a shared drive. No, it's not that easy. It's a little more clunky than we like. But so think, if you're migrating a large amount of data, talk to the experts before doing so, okay? And that will help guide you and give you best practices, okay? If it's 1 or 2 files, you know, 1 gig, 2 gig, no big deal. But if we're talking a large amount of files, it's probably good to talk to somebody that's done it a few times, okay? With that being said, but there are times that you just want to move a file over. We've already told you you cannot move a folder. If you don't believe me, watch me. I, again, am the manager. I am the owner of this folder, right? I am the owner of this folder, and I am the manager of the shared drive. I should have no problem moving a folder over. And it acts like it's working. Nope, folders can't be moved into a shared drive. That's the word, yet, right? Yet, okay? So you cannot do that, okay? Seems easy, but it's not gonna happen. However, I can move files over, okay? But what's one of the important factors? You have to be the owner, okay? So notice in this particular document too, I am not the owner. Trainer 1 is the owner, okay? We know Trainer 1 has access to this particular shared drive. That doesn't matter. This is coming from my drive. So if I'm going to go ahead and from my drive, I cannot take, notice the error message, a file that I do not own. Okay. I can, however, select using the Control or Shift. I can select those 3 files that I own. Who owns it? I do. And I am a contributor or above, right, to this shared drive. I can move those files over. And this is where it reminds you, ownership is going to change and more people might have access. Okay. Now those 3 files no longer owned by me. I'm still the creator of it, but they are now owned by the state of Iowa and in the shared drive environment. But it was at the file level that I could move files. And I was the owner. And I was a contributor or more. Access level. Okay. So again, this is where I would be really, if you're moving a whole bunch of files, maybe think about it, like don't give everybody access, however you want to do it. Again, folder infrastructure is really, really important, really, really important. So be aware of all that. Let's make sure I'm not forgetting anything else. Let me just quickly go to the last one and just quickly show you how to customize. So these instructions, how to customize your theme, because this is fun. I'm going to end in a fun way. You can go ahead and click on follow these instructions. And again, I'm just stealing and borrowing these. You have a Google drawing template or Google Slides, whatever is your flavor. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the Google drawing template. It's going to ask me to make a forced copy. Go ahead and make a forced copy. This is because it has to be a certain size. And you can add any picture that you want in here. And in this little blocked area is very important because that's the center of it. So you can just insert an image. I'm just going to go ahead and go to insert on the web, and I'll say sun. And I'm just going to pick an image that I like. Again, you can customize to whatever it is that you want. Kind of get it centered right where it's telling you. Again, I'm just showing you the process. Please take time on your own. And then go ahead and then download it as a JPEG or a PNG. So once you've got it and follow these instructions that are provided here, keep it in the little area. I'm going to go back to my shared drive. I'm going to then go and change the theme. I'm going to create a custom theme. And I haven't done this for a while. What did I just do? I guess I have to get it in my drive. I will just upload it here. Okay, so now I have that image inside my drive. It doesn't have to be in your shared drive, just in your drive. which again, I apologize, I haven't done this for a while. So then if I click here, change theme, create custom theme, and I'm going to go to shared drive. There's that image that I put in my shared drive. It's not beautiful by any means. You can pick a different color, save, and now you can see it is a sun. So again, you can spend a lot more time on that, but if icons, emojis, anything that kind of helps you look at all your different shared drives, that can help, because you can see now it is there with the little icon. The other thing you can see then, I talked about hidden shared drives. You always have an option if you do hide your shared drive earlier and you want, I don't have any in this account, but if I decided to hide the training one, I can hide the shared drive. Then I have less clutter here right now, but maybe I'm working on this project again. I can go to hidden shared drives, click on it, and unhide the shared drive, and it will appear back in my shared drive. And that's nice too, especially if you hide it in Google. I'm pretty sure, I should say double check this, but I'm pretty sure if you hide it in your Google Drive app here, it will also hide it in your Google for Desktop. But if I'm wrong, you guys will correct me, I'm sure of it. So with that, I don't have anything else. I guess I will post this video on the YouTube channel here shortly, probably tomorrow, to be honest. I do ask that if those that are watching this video at a later time to always check the resources below on the YouTube channel, because it'll have all this. And plus, on this slide deck, my goal is to have all the, not this one, on this one, we'll have links and chapters of talking about each one of these things in the slide deck portion of the thing, so we can dive deeper into it. Maybe not every topic, because that'll be a lot of chapters, but all the big ones for sure. So if there was anything that caused confusion for those that are watching live stream, you know how to get a hold of me. You can either email me directly or go to GoogleHelp-Iowa at iowa.gov, and I'll be more happy to assist you. Again, check out the YouTube channel. Thank you for joining, and have a great, wonderful day.